Yep, I not, yeah.
Is it working?
Well, no, just give me like
Okay.
10 minutes. I'm gonna have to somehow connect the owl to my laptop. Yeah.
I stand in front of it, maybe it needs something to focus on. Oh, it's like got a background. Oh, like a Zoom background. Yeah, how do I tell you I got that? That should just be in your Zoom, yeah. Blur my background, no. Yeah. Okay, there we go, okay.
I'll be an emoji if you want me to.
Well, I need your presentation again.
Okay, sure.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Well, good afternoon now. We are experiencing some technical difficulties, so please bear with us. Give us 1 minute.
Yeah. Takes a while.
Okay. I guess it's as good as it's gonna get. Okay. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Fantastic. My name is Brooke Blosser. For those of you who've been here before, I'm the very brand new Science Communications and Outreach Coordinator. Very excited and looking forward to getting to know the MRC community, which includes many of y'all. Before we get started with our Lagoon at Noon presentation today and introducing our speaker, I did want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. We've got some upcoming events for the Marine Resources Council. This Saturday, we will be attending the Thousand Islands Tabling, Thousand Islands Festival, which is at Cocoa Beach, pool pavilion. So we'll be there if you want to stop by and say hello. That is from 11 to 5, and there's more information on our volunteer website. We also will have a First Friday Litter Sweep this Friday from 8:30 until 10:30. It will be my first litter sweep, so I'm very excited about that. Would love to see some of y'all there. We've got 2 mangrove workshops coming up as well. One on Friday, November 14th, and another on November 22nd. Those are both from 9 to 11. If you would like more information about those and how to attend, you can come see me afterwards, and I can get you set up with a volunteer management program, which you can access from our website. Just a little bit of a heads up, we do have an annual membership meeting that is going to be at the end of this month. As a reminder, membership is a $25 donation fee within the year. If you are interested in making sure that you are a member or have an active membership, you can come ask me and I will check. But if you are also interested in becoming a member to attend our membership meeting, I'm happy to get you set up with those dues. We'll be releasing the 2025 annual Indian River Lagoon Health Report on Monday, November 17th. So be on the lookout for an email announcement for that. Dawn's talk today prepares us for the water quality trends of the Indian River Lagoon, which is a good kind of background to really truly understand the updates that we'll be releasing in the report towards the middle of this month. And in fact, the next Lagoon at Noon will be from Mara and Laura about that updated health report for the lagoon. So this is a great primer ahead of that. And then just as a general reminder, the Lagoon House will be closed on Veterans Day and Thanksgiving. So for some housekeepings, if you are in person, please go ahead and take a minute to silence all of your cell phones. We do have note cards that we'll be asking y'all to write your questions down on so that the folks on Zoom can hear those questions as well. On Zoom, you'll notice that the chat is disabled. The reason for that is we ask that you put your questions in the Q&A box. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and introduce our speaker, Dawn. Everyone say hello, Dawn. Dawn has worked for 45 years in the environmental science field as a consulting marine ecologist to industry and government. His areas of interest include environmental evaluation, assessment, and monitoring of marine, estuarine, and coastal projects, restoration of estuarine and marine ecosystems, impacts of oil and gas exploration, development and transport, disaster response planning, natural resource damage assessment related to disasters, and environmental rules and regulations.
Mr. Dice has authored or co-authored many technical reports and published several papers in his areas of interest. Since retiring as vice president and principal scientist, Don has been working with the Brevard Zoo and others on seagrass and other restoration projects in the Indian River Lagoon system. Currently, he is the chairperson for the Citizens Oversight Committee for the Save Our Indian River Lagoon project plan. I had the honor of speaking with Mr. Dice before our presentation today, and I'm very excited to hear this presentation as a newcomer to the area, but also I'm sure he will have many wonderful insights into how we can continue to work towards our Save Our Indian River Lagoon program. So let's give him a round of applause.
Yeah, no problem.
Do you have the clicker, Dawn?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great.
Yeah. I can tell you up front, this is going to be somewhat of a tedious of talks. We're going to work our way through it together. It's got a lot of graphs in it, a lot of water quality data in it, and it was tedious to put together. It's tedious to give. Please watch it with me, and if you see things in it that I've looked at it too much, and so if you see things in it that I don't see, please help me out along the way. There it is. Go back. All right, we're going to start off with some background data on where this background information on where this data comes from and why it exists. First of all, it starts with the 1972 Clean Water Act, and Section 303 of that Clean Water Act authorized EPA to assist the states and other entities in listing of impaired waters and the development of total maximum daily loads, TMDLs we call them, for water bodies. And the guidance, even though the act itself was done in 1972, the guidance for impaired water bodies came out in 1992, 20 years later. And this will be a theme of this that it's taken us a long time to get to where we are. So in 1998, the DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, listed the 16 water bodies of the IRL as impaired. This is a really important fact. They were listed in 1998 as impaired and verified in 2006 under the Impaired Water Rule. And the TMDL is just simply a restoration, a water quality restoration goal established on the maximum amount of pollutant that a water body can assimilate without exceeding water quality standards, that particular water quality standard that they select. And so in 2009, DEP developed a nutrient and dissolved oxygen TMDL for the Indian River Lagoon and the Banana River Lagoon. And at that time, they divided the water body into polygons based generally upon the causeways, but not specifically. And so they each got a specific water body identification number, and we call them WIBIDs. And the restoration targets were basically set upon seagrass growth depth, how far seagrass grows into the lagoon, what depth. So these are the WIBIDs. There's 3 of them in the Banana River Lagoon, starting at Dragon Point to Cocoa Causeway. That was set based upon nutrients and the seagrass growth depth. And then the Cocoa Causeway all the way up to Barge Canal. That was nutrients based upon seagrass depth. And then from the Barge Canal up to Cape Canaveral, that is a cutoff area there, and that was nutrients based upon seagrass depth. There's several within the Indian River Lagoon. We're going to start down at Sebastian Inlet to Melbourne Causeway. That was nutrients based upon seagrass depth. Melbourne Causeway to O'Galley Causeway. That was nutrients based upon seagrass depth, but also nutrients based on chlorophyll A. O'Galley to Cocoa Causeway. That was nutrients based upon seagrass depth. And then Cocoa to NASA Causeway, nutrients based upon seagrass depth, but also dissolved oxygen in that WIBID. And then NASA up to Max Brewer, nutrients based upon seagrass depth. And then Max Brewer up to the Hallover, that was everything. That was nutrients, seagrass depth, nutrients, chlorophyll A, and dissolved oxygen. Mosquito Lagoon within Brevard County, and I'm specifically talking about the WIBIDs and the parts of the Indian River Lagoon in Brevard County. Mosquito Lagoon within Brevard County had a WIBID number. It doesn't have a TMDL, not a lot of development in that area, but it has a reasonable assurance plan, which has a lot less teeth in it than the TMDLs. Beyond the TMDL, there were developed basin management action plans, and these were a stakeholder developed. They brought everybody together within that particular water body and came up with strategies and projects and solutions for getting to those TMDL goals, getting the water quality where it should be. There's a BMAP for the Banana River Lagoon. There's a BMAP for the northern Indian River Lagoon down to Melbourne Causeway, and then there's several sections of a central BMAP from Melbourne Causeway to Grant Farm Island. There's the Central A, and then Central B goes down to Wabasso Causeway, crosses over Sebastian Inlet there. They were originally developed in 2013, and then updated in 2021 based upon a new model, the SWIL model, the spatial watershed loading model. So I've developed this timeline to show you what's happened to the Indian River Lagoon over the last 60 years and why we're where we're at. And so it all begins back in the 1960s with the space program and the development, the rapid development of Brevard County, but no infrastructure. So a lot of housing development. You each got a septic tank. You each got a well, and so there was no centralized sewer, nothing like that. Then the Clean Water Act came along, and we've already talked about that. And next, that was in the 1970s. In the 1980s, there's the 1989 Indian River Lagoon Surface Water Improvement and Management Plan. And if you all remember those were called the SWIM plans and were developed by the water management districts. And in that, it was said that 40% of the pollution in the Indian River Lagoon was point source, mostly wastewater outfalls of sewage treatment plants. 60% was stormwater and tributary discharges. And then they also said that you got to start looking at the removal of muck because that may become critical along the way. So in 1990, there was the 1990 Indian River Lagoon System and Basin Act. And in that act, they prohibited the surface discharge of water treatment of wastewater from treatment plant facilities on the IRL. But it took until 1996 to get them all shut down. And we still have the discharges that occur in events. It required investigating the feasibility of wastewater reuse and encouraged the centralization of sewage treatment and also piping everybody into the sewage treatment plants. So in 1990, there was so in the 1990s, we got that, and then we got the guidance for the listing of impaired waters in 92. The IRL and the BRL were listed as impaired waters in 1998. So that transcended into the TMDL being developed in 2009. We're in the 2000s now. But right in the middle of that, we started the seagrass die-off and phytoplankton blooms in 2009, and those extended until 2015. And in that period of time, the BMAPs were developed. We got the stakeholders together, but the Save Our Indian River Lagoon program was created in 2016. And that was really sold to the individuals in Brevard County based upon the blooms that were occurring and affecting both tourism and people moving into the area. But basically, the soil program has been used to pay for projects in the BMAP program. Then in the 2020s, we're in the present now, and the legislation has really ramped up. And so we've got the BMAPs being updated with the SWIL model. Then we got the Clean Water Act, and I've really got to read these because there's so many things occurring in these. This Clean Water Act transferred permitting and inspecting of the septic systems from Department of Health to the DEP, required all wastewater treatment facilities to go to an advanced wastewater treatment, but no date was put on that at all. And then new requirements for preventing sanitary sewer overflows and underground pipeline leaks. And you all know that we still have a lot of work to do on that. And the required passage of a new stormwater rule, something that we've been asking for a long time. And these new stormwater rules would result in stricter stormwater management. And then BMPs for agriculture and golf courses. After that was the 2023 House Bill 1379. This was really significant because it required modifications to the IRL protection plan area. And I'll go over that along the way. And it required converting existing septic systems to sewer, that's septic to sewer, or advanced septic systems by July 1st, 2030. So it put a date on that. We have a date on that now, 2030. And upgrade all existing wastewater treatment facilities to AWT by 2033. And they promised to, state promised to put in $100 million a year towards IRL projects. That was done in the first year, but hasn't been done this year. And then the FDEP put out a final order on septic tanks and also wastewater treatment plants. Those were required to be done in January of this year and exist on the Brevard County website. So those are available, and it's important, particularly for people that have existing septic tanks, to understand whether or not you're in a future conversion area or you're going to have to upgrade to an advanced system. And that's actually in those plans. And then the final thing, we finally got the stormwater rule passed. And so the stormwater rule in the future will require a stricter stormwater standards on stormwater systems. So the important thing to remember through all this, that the Indian River Lagoon and the Banana River Lagoon were impaired waters. They're impaired waters, meaning that they were impaired, declared impaired back in the 1990s. So I used the Impaired Water database that was started in 1997 to develop the TMDL, and I started back in run 50, I think, but we're up to like probably run 70 now, and you can get all the data in it from the FDEP and the water management districts. And the interface looks like this. You enter the WIBID or the county, and you get all the WIBIDs in the county. And then you can get a lot of different water quality parameters. We're only going to do specific ones. And then you can download it in Excel spreadsheets or what you want to use to analyze that data. So I'm going to look at total nitrogen. That's all the different components of nitrogen in the water. Total phosphorus, that's all the different forms of phosphorus in the water. Chlorophyll A, which is the concentration of algae in the water. It's in the index of phytoplankton biomass. It's phytoplankton bloom level is what it is. Then I'll be looking at the nitrogen phosphorus ratio. And this is something we use in water bodies, in all water bodies, and it tells you which of the components are limiting, meaning which is in the smallest quantity and really limits the ability of it as a nutrient source. If the N/P ratio is low, that means nitrogen is the limiting factor. If it's high, then that means that phosphorus is that limiting factor. And pre-development, the N/P ratio was estimated to be about 45. So the IRL is a phosphorus limited system. That's why you'll see throughout this data that phosphorus is in a much lower quantity than nitrogen throughout. And when those quantities come up in phosphorus, they really affect this nitrogen to phosphorus ratio. So I analyzed data from the St. John's River Water Management District at their stations within the WIBIDs. And I analyzed each WIBID for the stations for the winter, which I chose November, December, January, February, and the summer, June, July, August, and September, from 1997 to 2024. And this is a very conservative approach. So the bloom levels will not be as high as they were, but you'll see the effects of them in the trends. So let's look at, this is Maxborough. This is the northernmost WIBID within the Indian River Lagoon. This is what's going to get really tedious now. So folks, buckle up. This is going to get pretty tedious. So this is all the data throughout all the years from 1997 to 2024. And general trends, this is nitrogen. Nitrogen is here, phosphorus is over here. This is the N/P ratio, and this is the chlorophyll A over here. So
The cursor's gone, I don't know.
yeah, sorry about that.
I thought it was me.
Yeah. So anyway, what you see is the general trend of nitrogen is pretty level throughout. It jumps around that level line, but it's pretty level. But in particular, you see this 2007 to 2009 depression. And that's when it was near 1. That's 1 milligram per liter of nitrogen. Then going over to phosphorus, you see that same thing. You see a general upward trend of phosphorus throughout the period. And these trend lines are just, I put on trend lines to show you these are simple linear trend lines. So they're just to show you the pattern of the data. And you can see that 2007 to 2009 period for phosphorus was actually at its lowest 0.2, and it was near 0.02 milligrams per liter. So you can see the difference between quantities right there. And then the N/P ratio, I put the 45 line on, you'll see the 45 line on all of the N/P graphics. So you can see that it was up near that 45-degree line, that red line, at that 2007 to 2009 period. And then for the algal bloom level, you can see that the algal blooms were low in that 2007 to 2009 period, and then it exploded. Wow. There you go. There's
Why?
So what happened during that 2007 to 2009 period was we had a period of low rainfall, low water levels, and high salinity. So transparency in the water column was super clear. And it favored the expansion of seagrasses. We were finding seagrasses down in the slope of the intercoastal waterway. We were saying, wow, we're pimping here. Yeah, we were really proud of what was happening. Sorry. But you can see we're also achieving that near that 45-degree level in that same time period, and the algal bloom levels were very low. So what happened in 2010 and 2011, we got water temperatures that were down near 40 degrees Fahrenheit, very cold waters. Probably anybody living here remember the sea turtles, the green turtles floating up, manatees having their problems. That was the trigger. And this is when it's important to remember that we were dealing with impaired waters. And this was the trigger that happened. Algal bloom levels here in this basin, in this WIVID, were correlated to N and P, nitrogen and phosphorus. And the long residence time, and residence time is the time that the water turns over. It's the turnover time of the water way up in here. You've got to remember, we've got a small inlet on the southern end. It takes a long time for this water to turn over. So the long residence time allows the phytoplankton biomass to accumulate. And this is all within a paper by Ed Flips and researchers from the University of Florida and St. John's River Water Management District on what caused the flip the switch. So let's look at the northernmost above the barge canal. This is one of the areas where the residence time is the longest. And you can see generally flat for nitrogen across, again, nitrogen phosphorus ratio, and the algal bloom level, the chlorophyll A right there. You can see generally the same kind of pattern that occurred where we were at the lowest level of nitrogen in that 2007 to 2009 period, lowest level of phosphorus. N to P ratios looked really good at that 45 level, and the bloom level was very low. So the same thing, I just wanted to point out that at this period of time, the nitrogen was at that near that 1 level, and the phosphorus was at that 0.02 level. So that really is that's kind of where we want to be, or lower in the future. So this will go into the future tier 2. And so the algal bloom level here was correlated to phosphorus. And that's something important to remember too, because phosphorus was a very important component. But you can see here where the N to P levels in this area got up to 100. So you can see the influence of phosphorus in this area, the phosphorus components. Very confusing to look at all the data at one time and try to get trends out of it. So I went back and forth with Virginia Barker and others on time periods that we need to look at. And we came up with these time periods, these 3 time periods. And one we called 1997 to 2008. We called that the pre-upset period, when, before that trigger was tripped, or just during when the trigger was tripped. And 2009 to 2015, this was the upset period. I'll call that the upset period, where the decline of seagrass and algal blooms. And then 2016 to present was when sorrel kicked in, and addressing the actions within the BMAP and the influence of that. So we'll go we'll start with the Banana River Lagoon here. Sorry, there's going to be a lot of graphs. And there's going to be 2 slides here where the across the top will be the nitrogen, and then the phosphorus. And then I'll do the next slide will be the N to P ratio and the chlorophyll A levels. And so this probably shows you trends better than all the data together, where it was trending downward in the pre-period for both nitrogen and phosphorus, and then the upward trend in nitrogen and phosphorus during the upset period, and then a downward trend back towards the levels that we were during the sorrel period. So, question is sorrel working? And then you can see the nitrogen to phosphorus ratio. This is still very important to watch, because you can see that we were meeting it in the pre upset period. And then in the upset period is that downward trend, but it's still low, with a slight increase in the sorrel period. So we have a lot of phosphorus yet to remove from the system somehow. And the problem is, I should back up for a minute. Part of the problem is that nitrogen and phosphorus, their cycles are different. Nitrogen kind of wants to be in the air. You know, it's the major component of our air, so 79% of it. And it kind of wants to be in the air eventually. Phosphorus wants to be in the sediment and form deposits. We actually mine phosphorus from on the west coast of Florida. So it wants to be in the sediment. The problem with what happened in the upset period is that we lost all the bottom vegetation, all the drift algae and the seagrasses at the bottom, which were oxygenating that bottom system. And now we're getting periods of low oxygen and actually hypoxia, zero oxygen. And that actually drives that phosphorus out of the sediments. It wants to be attached to iron in the sediment, iron oxides, and it wants to be attached to that, but the low DO is what forces it out of the sediments and into the water column. And so just the chlorophyll A, we get you can see the chlorophyll A in the pre-upset period was very low. And then we got these high spikes in the upset period. We still have fairly high chlorophyll A in the soil period, but since 2022, I think it is, it's gone down and hopefully it'll stay down. We're going to go Cocoa Causeway to the Barge Canal, or Barge Canal down to Cocoa Causeway. Let's go the opposite direction. We're going south. You can see the patterns very similar. Downward trend of nitrogen and phosphorus. A little jumpy on the phosphorus in the pre-upset period, and then real jumpy and basically flat or upward trends in the upset period. And then a downward trend in the soil period. And you can see phosphorus is not quite getting down to the levels that it should, down to that 0.02, which is the last line down on the graph there. And this really affects the nitrogen to phosphorus ratio. You see it jumping around in the pre-period and then going down, that downward trend. And a slight upward trend, but low in around 20 in the post period. And the same kind of pattern for chlorophyll A. You can see it's low in the pre-period, jumps up those blooms that occurred. Still the blooms that are occurring, but we also got wintertime. Black is wintertime. We got the wintertime blooms, which was rare. And then Cocoa Causeway down to Dragon Point. This is a big wivet here, and I want to focus on the fact that there's large muck deposits within this wivet. One of them is being dredged right now and has been dredged for a while. The Grand Canal in that area is continuing to be dredged, and so the patterns here are similar, but a little more muted. And so you see the downward trends, but jumpy for phosphorus in the pre-period, general flat or slightly upward trends in the upset period, and then muted downward trends in sorrel. So that's an area where work needs to be done to get phosphorus out. And then you got the N to P ratios. You see it's never really achieved that 45 level in this area. And it's resulted in blooms throughout all the periods here. You can see that blooms have occurred throughout all the periods. And even in the sorrel period with that wintertime bloom that happened. And if you read the Flips article, these are different species that bloom in the summer and the winter, the temperature dependent. Jumping over to Max Brew, over to the Indian River Lagoon. Sorry, folks, this is what I talk about tedious. It's a tedious talk. Max Brew to the haulover. Actually, a haulover to Max Brew. Let's go south on this too. you see the downward trend in the pre-period. And then the upward trend are fairly flat in the upset period, and the downward trend, and we're getting down to levels of nitrogen, not to phosphorus that we need to get to in this basin. Now you can see how it affected the nitrogen to phosphorus ratios down, but and even in the soil period, it's staying down. And then also the chlorophyll A, you can see the big effect of the upset period and the bloom levels that occurred there, and the general downward trend to pre-upset levels in the soil period. I'm going to jump through the next two WIBIDs because they're similar, and you're gonna go cross-eyed if I keep showing you these. I'll tell you. So I'm going to jump down to Cocoa Causeway to Ogali because I want to get down to the point where I show you where the real problem areas are. And this is Cocoa Causeway to Ogali. You can see a general downward trend in nitrogen, but you can see the problem with phosphorus here. In the summertime, it's jumping all over the place. It shows as a trend line fairly flat. Yeah, but you know, you can see it through all the periods, and even in the swirl period, it's actually not getting any better for phosphorus in particular. You can see the effect on the nitrogen to phosphorus ratios here. They're always depressed, but stays depressed even in sorrel. And then the effect on blooms. The blooms are occurring throughout all the period of time here. And then there's this wintertime bloom. And then even in 2023, we get this summertime bloom. This is Ogali Causeway down to Melbourne Causeway. And you can see the same kind of patterns. Nitrogen, we're getting down there in one. So nitrogen is kind of, it's a problem, but a little bit less of a problem in some of these areas. And so during the upset period, a slight increase, but it continues to be an increase in the even in the sorrel period. Phosphorus, slight downward trends, but jumpy around their lines. Definitely not stable. Upward trend in the upward trend in the upset period. I even had to change the scale here because it got so high in 2023 that it actually was higher than the typical scale that I was using. You can see the effect on the nitrogen phosphorus ratio. It's depressed and has stayed depressed through the entire time period. And the effect on algal blooms, where we have algal blooms occurring throughout the time periods. And then that significant algal bloom that occurred in 2023 down in this area. Finally, we're to the last one. This is Sebastian, and this is Melbourne Causeway down to Sebastian Inlet. And this area is near the inlet. You would think that it would get a good turnover level and all, and it does have an improved turnover level. You can see the nitrogen in the pre-upset period was actually below 1 in the summertime. Ooh,
I'm sorry.
that's okay. Slows me down a little bit. Try just the arrow key.
Close them. I couldn't. It's changing his presentation instead. How do I do it? I'll do it again. There we go.
There we go. Yeah, so the nitrogen phosphorus ratio in this area, you can see it's depressed. It was on the rise in the wintertime, in the pre-upset period, but has stayed depressed through the upset period and into sorrel. And then the bloom levels on the bottom, you can see that they've occurred throughout. And then there's that 2023 bloom that's in the summertime, but wintertime blooms also through the system throughout the water quality changed itself.
Is it working with the clicker? Okay.
Yep, yep. And you, I know you're saying, well, why is this? Why is this? And here I've got two images here. One is the DEP Indian River Lagoon Protection Plan area in Brevard County. And it's blue, and you can see the Indian River Lagoon and the Banana River Lagoon within it. And what I wanted to point out here was how narrow it is along the here within this northern part of the lagoon, how narrow it is. And then, of course, you've got very little development on this side. And so that really influences that northern part of the lagoon. But once you get down to 528, right here, you get more development. The protection plan area is starting to expand out to the west along the upland area. And you've got Merritt Island in the middle of it all. And then the development along the beaches. Once we get south of that, you can see where it really expands in this area, in the Melbourne and Palm Coast area, and then down into Sebastian. You can see it really expands and it incorporates all the creeks and river systems in that area and all the canals that are going in it. And those all flow towards the lagoon, and the groundwater goes towards the lagoon. So there's much more influence of surface and groundwater in this area. And the LiDAR image here is elevation of the upland, and the red is where the coastal ridge is that runs along the coastal ridge is the highest point in Brevard County. And you can see how it runs along the Indian River Lagoon in the northern part, but begins to extend westward as you get down to Melbourne and southward. And that's really the creek and river systems, along with their canals, associated canals, reach that coastal ridge and add to the pollutants that are going into the lagoon. And then you've got groundwater also flowing in that direction. The first project of Sorrel to address that has been the M1 canal. And that structure that has just been put in place in the M1 canal that divides the water, the surface water, between the St. Johns River and the Indian River Lagoon. And that structure is right on the coastal ridge coming off Crane Creek. And it's right it's just north of the mall at on 192.
That's what they've been doing.
Exactly. That's what they've been doing.
What's going on?
That is the structure, and it's taken a long time. It's in place and it's working now. So it just got put in place.
Finished that. They had the whole road blocked off for a long time.
Exactly. So now you know. Yeah.
Are you using pumps and stuff to do that?
What's no, it's a structure much like much like a dam, but it's very controllable. Yeah. But you still have the groundwater flow. The groundwater flow is not that's surface water flow. So you still have the groundwater flow going towards the Indian River Lagoon.
During hurricanes, will they be able to modulate, like how much is released, like from inward?
Yeah,
versus-
yeah, they can change the elevation of the structure. It comes up from the bottom. So they could change the elevation of that structure. So this is something that was presented at one of our COC meetings just recently on muck dredging and the influence of all the different pollution sources within the IRL. And this really goes back to what I just showed you on the maps, that the pollution sources within the Banana River Lagoon across the top here, over here in the blue is total nitrogen. Over here in the red is total phosphorus. And so their sources within the northern Banana River Lagoon are really muck related. You can see muck is the last one. And less so for rainfall runoff, surface water runoff, and base flow, which is groundwater. Also in there is atmospheric and what's this, the other one? Point source. Point sources are very low.
What's a point source?
Point source would be like a sewage treatment plant outfall, which don't occur anymore, but there's a few point sources within each of the basins. And then we have the northern Indian River Lagoon, which is very similar to that northern Banana River Lagoon, where surface water runoff and base flow are significant in those areas, but much less so than muck, for both phosphorus and nitrogen. But then when we get down to that central, it starts at 192, but certainly incorporates the areas to a little bit to the north. Surface water runoff and groundwater flow are much more significant as pollution sources within those areas, and muck is less important. Muck is associated, actually the muck deposits in this area are more associated with the creeks and the rivers, and the mouths of the creeks and the rivers in this area. So the creek and river systems are very significant in the southern part of the lagoon and are continuing to be a pollution source. So you ask yourself, these are Ski Lagoon, Northern Indian River Lagoon, and Northern Banana River Lagoon. They've all had recently seagrasses growing in them. You know, and these are recent pictures of seagrasses. This is shoal grass, Halodillia wrightii. And you say to yourself, well, what's happening here? You know, why is it occurring here, you know, and not in other areas of the lagoon? And they're actually very similar in their reaction to the upset period. This is the pre-upset period. And what I'm going to do is go through nitrogen phosphorus ratio and the chlorophyll A in the pre-upset period. Then I'm going to show the upset period and then the post and then the soil period in different slides. So you can see that in particular, the nitrogen phosphorus ratio, the Skeeter Lagoon got up to 140, almost 140 for the nitrogen phosphorus ratio. It really shows you how low phosphorus was in that area and how low you want it to be in the lagoon. And then the Northern Indian River Lagoon, if you remember from the paper, nitrogen and phosphorus were kind of co-correlated. And so the effect is lower. The blooms were lower, or the nitrogen phosphorus ratio was lower in that area. And then Northern Indian River Lagoon, or the Northern Banana River Lagoon, is between the two, and it got up to above 100. I think that's 100.
That's too much. It looks.
No, it's.
Well, I just can't read.
Yeah, it was high also. And then the chlorophyll A levels are similar. It's very, very low. Bloom levels are very, very low in the pre-upset period. The upset period, you can see the downward trends in the nitrogen phosphorus ratio, and then the effects of the blooms. And the blooms show the same scale differences as did the nitrogen phosphorus ratio, where the scale differences in the Mosquito Lagoon and the Banana River Lagoon are high, really high. A lot of accumulation of phytoplankton in that area. Less so in the Northern Indian River Lagoon. And then in the soil period, you can see that none of them are getting up to that level of nitrogen and phosphorus. We're not getting rid of the nitrogen, of the phosphorus, where the phosphorus is not staying in the sediment where we want it to be. And it's just is a problem right now. But you can see in particular this residence time, how it affects the Banana River Lagoon and its bloom levels, which were persistent for some time, and particularly that winter time, that black line wintertime bloom, and falling low in 2020.
You did it.
So,
Thank you very much, Don.
yeah,
Um,
by the way, I do have the other areas, if you're interested in looking at those, the whippets that I didn't show, I have here. I have the current bloom levels, and if you're interested in what current bloom levels, because we're having somewhat of a bloom right now. I have current bloom levels, in slides subsequent, and then I also have images of the nitrogen phosphorus ratio or nitrogen phosphorus cycle, if anybody's interested in seeing that.
Great. So we are going to, if you have a note card, if you're in the audience and have questions, please write your question down so we can repeat it for those on Zoom. We are going to start with your Zoom question while people write. Megan says, how come total nitrogen is higher in the winter than the summer from 2016 to 2024 at that O'Galley Causeway?
It could be related to rainfall, groundwater flow, at that time. That's something that we wanted to add to this presentation, or this analysis here was rainfall. Problem with rainfall and association with the whippets, rainfall is what we call very stochastic. And it's what we always talk about rainfall in Florida. It can be raining across the street, but not on my house. And that's what occurs here. So it's very hard to analyze rainfall. You almost have to do it with GIS and with individual pixels in GIS and try to get that and analyze that way. So it's very difficult to do rainfall, and that affects the surface water and groundwater flows into those areas, particularly those areas that she asked the question about.
Yeah, so this kind of builds off of that.
Yeah.
Is there a correlation to the populations in the various areas of the lagoon study?
Oh, of course. And it's something I should have mentioned along the way, but you can see how much information is there. And so I should have mentioned along the way, very definitely urbanization. You can see where urbanization really starts below that 528, by the 528 causeway, and comes and once you start into that with Merritt Island, the beaches, but in particular the upland impact and that surface to groundwater flow that comes from there. You can see where urbanization and then the westward expansion, including Palm Bay and all that. And so a lot of septic tanks, there's still 60,000 septic tanks are within the watershed. So that we have to deal with. It's
That covered the whole county.
within, no,
The watershed.
within the watershed, within the protection area. So anyway, it's a big task to get that all under control, and that really affects the groundwater in particular.
Would that be,
Just write your questions, please. This, you may or may not have an answer to this. So are there any plans to address the pollutants in the Tillman Canal, that flows into Turkey Creek?
Yeah, eventually there'll be a similar type of project occur there where they'll split the water, the surface water. Again, we're dealing with surface water, the surface water flow between that's supposed to go to the St. Johns River. You got to remember that on the M1 canal, there was a surface water treatment system on the western end before it goes into the St. Johns River. So that was all planned to be there. Same thing will happen on the Tillman. Hopefully it'll go right down, march right down all the systems and make that split between what should go west and what should go east.
Great answer, thank you. So this is about your nitrogen and phosphorus ratios.
Expensive projects, let me say.
Yes,
I mean,
so expensive.
expensive projects and
Time consuming.
and so it takes a lot of money to make those happen.
Yeah. So regarding your nitrogen to phosphorus ratio, is a 45-to-1 ratio good?
Yeah, I mean, that's what but you can see that it's different. It's kind of different for different areas from the jumps that occurred, that sometimes phosphorus is more influential within systems for 45 is a good starting point. But you know, you even want to be, you know, it'd be better to be better than that.
Yeah, so to just build on that, so is there a different ratio for different water bodies that is ideal?
Sure, there is. Yeah, I mean, the ocean, they do NPP ratios on the ocean even, so, and areas, bays and things like that. So, yeah, it's significant, but different in different water bodies.
Yeah. Is it the absolute concentrations that matter, or is it the ratio?
Both, both, very definitely both. And that's what I tried to focus on that, where we got down to that nitrogen level of 1 milligram per liter and the phosphorus level of 0.02 milligrams per liter. But that transcends into also watching our soil. We put in how much nitrogen and phosphorus is being removed from the lagoon with each of the projects that is done. And you can always see that the nitrogen being removed is much higher than the phosphorus. It's always going to be true. It's much harder to get that phosphorus out, and it's in much lower levels.
And can you define for us what it means to be phosphorus limited? What does that mean?
That means that phosphorus is the limiting. It goes back, I think it's Liebre's leaky barrel. His leaky barrel theory, where to make a good, this is for agriculture. To make a good fertilizer, there's always something limiting, you know, and it could be any one of it could be anything like selenium or, you know, anything. I'm just simply putting it with phosphorus and nitrogen here. And if you wanted to make a good fertilizer, which we've done, you want to increase the phosphorus, and the nitrogen's already there. And so you got a good fertilizer. And so he used it for how to make a good fertilizer for agriculture. He says there's always something limited. There's a leaky staff within the barrel, and you had to figure out which one was leaking, and then you would have a good fertilizer.
Okay, where are we in aggregate based on the different basins? Can we say we are near or have turned to a point towards improvement?
Stations, I'm not really.
Yeah, so would you say that we are at a tipping point right now in the lagoon? Like, are we improving, or are we steady?
I started this talk out with all the data together to show you that we were in impaired waters to begin with. And all it took was a significant event to be the trigger. And that trigger was that 2 years of extremely low temperatures for an extended period of time in the wintertime. And that trigger could occur again. We're still in impaired waters. That trigger could occur again at any time. And we could enter another phase of high algal blooms and problems. So it's something to always watch. I'm not, well, Ed Flips gets into climate and climate cycles, and the significance of climate cycles. I'm not going to get into them too much. If anybody has any questions about them, I'll answer questions, but watch your climate cycles. They're influential on systems. There's long-term cycles like the the AMO, multi-decadal oscillation. Those are long cycles, and then you've got La Nina and El Nino, which are short-term cycles, 3 to 5 years. So those are things to watch and listen for as you listen to the weather.
Do you think there are any basins in the IRL that are doing better than others?
Well, it appears as though the northern part is doing better, and that's because of probably because of low development, low inputs into the system. So it's doing better than the south of 528 on the Indian River side. Banana River Lagoon, and it's in total is looking not too bad right now.
Okay, so I've got 2 more about nitrogen and phosphorus, and then more that are about soil.
Okay.
So dredged muck is being treated for nitrogen and interstitial water. Is anything being done for phosphorus?
Oh, yeah, both of them being treated, and both of them, the interesting thing about, the interstitial water treatment and it's occurring on the Benito Causeway, that dredge material disposal site. It occurs, it's occurring there, and you gotta remember that muck dredging is difficult because we have to bring it up onto a site, and oftentimes these sites are very small. And so it doesn't allow for water to be treated at the disposal site. There'll be other projects that occur along the way where we'll be putting it into larger disposal sites and treatment can occur. But the interstitial water is being treated, but they have treatment levels that they're required to meet to be paid. And so they're really incentivized to reach those levels and discharge the levels that are required.
Great. Okay. The contribution of threats, i.e. surface water, wastewater, effluent, septic, and muck have been assessed differently over the years. Before Sorrel, it was thought to be groundwater, and then I'm sorry, Terry. Sorrel something, much at 40% initially, pressed, muck at 40% initially, but here it's down to 20% now.
Are you talking about the pie charts or?
The threat contribution, but the real point is, are we making more progress against some threats than others?
So the question was, are we making more progress against some threats than others? Go ahead, Don.
Are we doing more against with baffle boxes and so on against surface water? Are we doing more with getting septic to sewer connections? Just to look at that opinion.
I can tell you it's all slow. I mean, I can't, yeah, it's all slow and it's all, septic sewer projects are very expensive. And so you can only do, with the money that's available, you can only do a few at a time, you know. Muck dredging is expensive. You can only do one or two a period of time. The other thing you got to remember about those kind of projects, they take a long time for from us recommending to the county commission for approval of projects to their being designed, permitted, bid, and then constructed and put into use. So you're talking sometimes 5 to 7 years for them from conception to actual functioning. And that's part of the problem too.
That would be a good chart, by the way, for
Yeah.
Sorrel.
Yeah,
We need to have that shows the lag time. Sorrel started 2016. We
Yeah.
really start seeing the growth in nitrogen and phosphorus
Wait.
reduction.
Yeah.
And we have it.
Have a graphic?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We do have that. It's in just different forms. I'll have to talk to him about that.
Yeah.
It's in different forms, you know, some of it's in pie charts, some of it's in just.
A table.
Or,
I think that one's in a table. It's like how many percentage of the projects.
or bar charts,
Yeah,
might be bar charts, yeah. I'll have to
What
look into
you're
it.
trying to foot stomp is the lag,
right.
right?
There's
So
a
you need
tremendous
to-
lag, you know, and that's a problem. That's a problem, but it's not solvable in any way. I'm not really sure how you could solve that. With all the different things that need to occur. Even with surface water improvement, the baffle boxes and things like that, those all have to be permitted and put into place. So they're all affecting surface water. Yeah.
Okay, what should we change to reduce the persistent blooms in the northern IRL? So 528 north to Turnbull Creek.
Persistent blooms.
I get the satellite
Oh,
Okay, yeah,
overlay,
that's right.
And man, that northern end is always
a little bloomy.
really gloomy, and I fish up there, and the water clarity is
Right
so
now.
poor that you can't
Yeah, right.
fish artificials because they can't see them.
Yeah, that's why I was gonna show you, if you saw, hopefully you saw the bloom levels that occurred when we did say that phytoplankton was really blooming, you know, that it was in the 100 micrograms per liter is what those are measured in. Now what we're seeing is more below 30.
Around 40 to 60, you know.
Possibly, but not, that's pretty rare. But you know, we're gonna, you know, those usually occur with rainfall and surface water influence, just like what we had in the Titusville area in the last week or so. We had significant rainfall, so you're gonna see blooms occur because it's going to push out that groundwater, push out that surface water. And we had an overflow at the Osprey plant, which is right on the edge of the northern Indian River Lagoon.
So if you stay tuned for the MRC IRL health report that's coming out on the 17th, we talk about those wastewater spills. So we absolutely are.
And they're still occurring, you know, there's something that we have to get under control, you know.
Yeah.
With new sewage treatment plants, larger sewage treatment plants, using advanced wastewater treatment and get them away from the lagoon like that one is. There's no plan for it to move at all, but it also needs a lot of your initial pipes that came from the homes are concrete and articulated, and they've separated, and so they become combined systems. So when we have rainfall, the groundwater penetrates right into the system, causing those overflows. So they're combined systems too, and then so those all need to be replaced or lined. You can see infrastructure is our enemy, you know, and our friend, but financially it's our enemy.
All right, so to your Sorrel questions, what Sorrel project do you think has been the most helpful, if you could pick one? That's a tough question.
We got Terry here. Terry's got
They're all
more.
important. You had the right answer before to the, you know, where are we making the most progress? You gotta deal with all the fronts.
Yeah,
Do you have one that sticks in your head though?
not really, no.
For me,
Biggest
because I
box.
did research on it, it would be the Sykes Creek muck removal.
Yeah,
That was pretty impressive to watch the benthic recovery. So that's exciting for me as a benthic ecologist, but I also haven't been a part of all the other projects, so I can't say that it was more important than anything else.
and by the way, that project is basically in that basin, that
Yeah.
same large basin that I talked about where all the muck is occurring, and the discharge of Sykes Creek is through Marsh Harbor
Yeah.
out into the lagoon.
So in some of those areas, they actually removed up to 9 feet of muck. So while that is really good that it's gone, the sources are still there, and so the muck is already coming back.
And Marsh Harbor is one of the areas where we're seeing seagrasses growing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, whether that project had the influence on that is a question, but,
We think so.
small successes.
Yeah. All right, and what are your predictions if the Sorrel tax is not renewed?
I'm really not allowed to talk about that.
Yeah, neither are we.
Yeah. Yeah, see, Terry will shoot me if I do. Yeah, so I'm just not able to say anything about
Yeah.
that.
Unfortunately, we can't side one way or another. We are nonpartisan, but we can point out the benefits. All right, any other questions in the audience or on Zoom? Last call.
Yes.
Do you have a note card?
No, I never got one.
Okay, I need to repeat it for the people on Zoom, so go ahead.
Okay. I was wondering if there's ever been a study or a trial of the enzyme, the bacterial enzyme that digests muck.
So that's a very specific question. So she asked if there has been studies into an enzyme that can digest muck.
Well, we're always open to alternative.
There are a couple of
Well, if you want,
bacterial enzymes that actually digest the muck.
yeah, matter of fact, we have our meetings, COC meetings, once a month. And we have a period of time for the public to speak. You can also propose a presentation through the Brevard County Natural Resources. So that can be presented at any time to the group through either of those methods.
Any other questions in the audience or on Zoom? Do you have some questions?
I was trying to figure out, is there a way to somehow in Florida, the governor and our education systems and put the money and expertise into using AI to analyze this very complex amount of data? There's so much data. And I don't see you coming out with, it's so massive. I don't blame anybody, but I believe in AI, and they are coming up with, they're using it in medicine. And can we as a group, as individuals, as a community, all of Florida, say to the governor and to our higher education and there's expertise out there that can help us find patterns, because we're answering this: is it rain? Is it this? Is it enzymes? What has the biggest impact? Where can we put our energies? Just better understand it.
I think we got a pretty good understanding.
Yeah, so the
Well, I know
question
you
for
do.
those on Zoom was, is there a way that we can utilize AI to assess these massive data sets that we have?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Not sure we have massive data sets.
So I understand where you're coming from, because there's water quality data and there's HAB data and there's wastewater data and there's I do understand. Yeah. There's also tons and tons of organizations and universities with hands-on scientists looking at that data. So it's hard to say whether AI has a place in it. I know personally, as a doctoral student right now, we're really struggling to find where AI fits into data processing, because it can have errors and things like that. So I think it's not really an answer, but it's in progress, and we have to figure out where that fits into the data collection, the data processing process. Does that make sense, Don?
Yeah. Actually, my daughter is she works on Copilot. She works for Microsoft, and she's a statistician. And I'm a real believer in Copilot. I like it as a tool, that you can use off to the side. Actually asked Copilot to take this presentation and make it available, make it understandable to high school students. And what came out was not what I wanted it to be at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It basically didn't give me what I wanted.
Because it isn't our brain. So you have to really.
Yeah. So you have to really work at it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, we have like Mara said, we have a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
A lot of groups are working on it, and AI is becoming a component in all that.
We're just learning about how to use that technology. It isn't smart. I mean, we call it intelligence. It isn't, but it can look at so much data, and if you ask the right question, it can give you an answer. But it's finding the ways to
Exactly. So it's finding the way to ask it the question where it gives you the accurate answer. Because I know I have a very large data set for my dissertation, and I wanted to know what would happen. So I put it in there and I asked it to do an analysis I had already run, and it was completely inaccurate.
It was accurate?
It was not accurate. And so you have to, and it may have been how I worded it. It may have been how the data was set up. Laura.
So just to clarify, there is a difference between AI and machine learning.
Yeah.
Can you come closer to the mic?
So for those of you on Zoom as well, there's a difference between AI and machine learning. AI is input in, input out. It's kind of a one-time deal that learns from a reservoir of knowledge. Machine learning is where you essentially train the algorithm through like routine data entries. so that it can detect patterns and trends and things like that. So what we really need is the machine learning aspect of it, not the AI aspect. And there are organizations working on that. We've been working with a group from NASA and University of Colorado and a couple of the organizations with bacteria data, for example, to train AI with machine learning when we have all of this continuous data coming in, so it knows when to alert people to abnormalities. So that's where we're really gonna see the first level of kind of the AI machine learning push.
And we do have a lot of data out there. We have all these, the continuous collecting stations out there too. And I didn't use any of that because it has it's really hard to work with. It has a degradation time, all kinds of things go on there. And it needs a lot of QA/QC to even really start to use that kind of data out there. There's a lot of parameters that are being collected continuously on 30 second intervals.
30 to 60, depending on. the
Yeah,
organization.
so tons of data out there.
Yeah. Okay, I don't have any other questions online. But that, just for reference to those on Zoom, that was our executive director, Laura Wilson. And I think we're gonna call it there. Thank you for sticking with us through some Zoom issues. We appreciate it. Just a reminder, these are recorded and uploaded to YouTube. So if you do want to watch it again, you're more than welcome to. It'll be up in the next couple days. Let's give Dawn a hand.